Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at calculations using Excel. Here is my raw data. I've typed in what the quantities are with the units and the uncertainty, and I'm just going to make that a little longer by highlighting, rolling over this end mouse key and just pulling it over. I don't have a title on my chart so far, so I'm going to insert by doing right mouse click and insert a row. Okay. So now I can put a title on here, and this would be data table mass and volume of ethanol and graduated cylinder. You can probably tell I don't like writing titles as much as you. Now I want to have that centered across the whole table, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to highlight these cells, and I'm going to go up here and say merge, and that puts it in the center. I'm also just going to make it a little more bigger. That would be the word. Jeez. Okay. So now I've got my mass of the graduated cylinder. Notice how I put the units and the uncertainty here. Okay, and then my values. And what you look for is to make sure that all of your values are within that precision identified by the unknown or by the uncertainty. So if I'm at 0.01 to the hundredths place, all of my mass readings should be to the hundredths place. Volume should be to the tenths place, and those all are. Now let's see what we have to do to get the results table. The idea here is we're measuring the density or calculating the density and the uncertainty of ethanol. Okay, so the first thing I guess I'm going to do, I have the mass. Remember, density is mass over volume. So I have the mass of the graduated cylinder, and then the mass of the graduated cylinder in ethanol. So I can use those two to get the mass of ethanol. That's going to end up being in grams. Okay. So in the cell, and I'm going to do these, oh, you know what I need to do here? I'm going to add another thing in here and call this trial 1, trial 2, trial 3, trial 4, and trial 5. So then down here, I'm also going to need to have actually, I can go up here, right mouse click, copy, go down here, put it in the cell I want to begin with, and I'm going to do right mouse click, paste, and that pastes those all in. So again, I highlighted these, right mouse click, copy, went down to this first cell that I want that trial 1 to start in, right mouse click, and then paste. Okay, I'm going to make it look pretty later. Right now I'm just going to focus on putting the calculations here. And I think I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so that, yeah, all right, so that we can see what's going on. So in this cell, what I want to do is take this number and subtract this number. So in this cell, I'm going to put a plus sign, and that tells Excel that I'm going to start a calculation. I want to do whatever values in this cell, and then minus whatever values in this cell. Okay, and that's 4.35. And you can double check that to make sure that that's correct. All right, so that gives me the mass of ethanol. And then density, I can calculate density right away. Density, and this is going to be grams divided by milliliters per units. For this one, I'm going to take this mass that I just calculated, right? So plus sign tells Excel I'm going to do a calculation, and then highlight the cell that I want first, and then just divide it by the value that's in that volume cell. Okay, so there we go. All right, so the uncertainty, and by the way, guys, you really should have the calculations already done, sample calculations, so when you're doing this, you're just kind of making it pretty and doing the calculations for all the trials. So here I'm going to do the uncertainty for the mass of ethanol, and this is going to be see how I forgot to put the units here? All right, if I do it, I have to come up here to add it. And then it's, that was Option Shift plus key to get that plus minus point. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just doing the units, plus or minus grams. Okay. And then hit return, and it shows up there. So here, because both of these have an uncertainty of 0.01, the absolute uncertainty for this is just going to stay 0.02 for every mass reading. Now, for the uncertainty of the density, I divided the mass by the volume. So in your sample calculations, you should have the percent uncertainty for the mass of ethanol. And this is going to be in plus minus percent. So here, I'm going to tell it it's going to be a calculation. I'm going to take the mass divided by, no I'm not, I'm going to take the uncertainty. That's not the uncertainty either. This uncertainty, I'll get it straight. This uncertainty divided by the mass, and then times 100. We'll make it pretty later, okay? And you should check to make sure that these numbers are the same as the numbers that you did in your sample calculations. The other thing I'm going to need is the percent uncertainty for the volume of ethanol. And again, that's going to be a plus minus percent. Here, again, tell Excel you're going to make it a calculation. I have to take the uncertainty of the volume, which is always 0.5. I'm going to divide that by the volume, and then multiply that by 100. Okay. Now I can find the percent uncertainty for density. And this again is going to be plus minus percent. And that is adding this uncertainty, percent uncertainty, and that percent uncertainty. The last thing that we have to do is calculate the percent error of the density of ethanol. And this will be a percent. We're going to have to go look that up on the internet. Okay. So looking up the density, I found that the density of ethanol is 0.789 grams per milliliter, and that comes from that website. You should be a little bit nicer in how you cite that, just saying. All right, so the percent error of the density. Again, I'm going to tell them that we are making a calculation, and I'm going to take the density that I found, subtract the accepted density, divide by the accepted density, and then multiply that times 100. Okay, and that gives me my percent error. All right, so those are all my calculations. Now here's the fun part. I have all those calculations, and they reference this raw data. So if I highlight all of those, and I make my cursor look like that, I can drag this over to all of the trials. All right, and then all of my things are done. Now, if you notice, this looks messy as far as the digits that are calculated. And this one is a negative, and you really don't have a negative. So what you need to do is, quick and dirty, you should probably figure out the function for a absolute, but I'm just going to do it this way. Oops. That's not where I wanted to go. Crap. Hang on, I'll get there. So here, I want, instead of C11 minus 0.79, I want that minus C11, and I'm going to get rid of that first part, and that, yeah, that just makes it a positive. All right, this little thing there, that little triangle thing, tells you that this formula in this cell is different than the other ones. All right, so looking over the number of significant figures, these are all correct. These should be, whoa, okay, this one should be to 2 because this is 5. These should be to 3 because these middle ones should be to 3 sig figs. That last one should be to 4. So I'm going to highlight these, go back to home, and I'm going to make these be less, to 3. This one I'm going to decrease to be 4. Those, see what this, and this is something to be aware of. See how when I copied it, this added 1 because Excel thinks it's smarter than I am. 0.02, 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. Okay, and there's a way to do that, and I forget, so there we go. Percent uncertainty, we're going to make these, is that actually times 100? Pretty low percent uncertainties. Yeah, I guess it would be though, wouldn't it? All right, thinking out loud. All right, let's decrease those to 2 sig figs to make those go a little lower. Okay, and then percent uncertainty. Let's delete those. To 2, and then this one has to be a little different. I don't know how to make the decimal point show up, so there's that. And then the percent uncertainty. Make this go. And then the percent error. Make this one go up a little. Make this one go down a little. Okay. Then make them all borders. Let's put a title on this. Let's do mass and density of ethanol with uncertainties and error. I don't know why that moved. Okay, and then merge and center. All right, so, and then you can play around and make them pretty, but I think that shows you how to do calculations, how to copy them across the entire table, and then how to adjust some of the sig figs.